So the topic of Rolling Thunder has reminded me of what are the most ridiculous cards in Limited? I mean, people love lists. I love lists. I mean, who
Oh
doesn't love
yeah,
lists?
I love a list.
Top five list is a great list. And as unpleasant as it may be to get your whole team Rolling Thunder, there are better cards in Limited. So I just wanted to mention the kind of what I have as the top five of cards in Limited. Though, I don't know if it's good or bad that a couple of these cards are from the last year, and a couple more from the last couple of years.
Uh
So
huh.
that's a thing. We're gonna go ahead and start with Gideon Jura. This is a three
Oh
white white
yeah.
Planeswalker, Gideon, and starts at 6 loyalty. You can -2 Gideon to kill a tapped creature. You can +2 Gideon to make all your opponent's creatures must attack Gideon. And then you can pay 0 loyalty to make Gideon into a 6/6. So specifically, actually want to mention Gideon in M12 because context definitely matters. There are cards, which have appeared in a format and been unbeatable and appeared in other formats and been just very good instead of unbeatable. And as it turns out, Gideon in M12 was just basically unbeatable, whereas Gideon in Rise of the Eldrazi wasn't, even though he was very good there too.
Yeah,
So
Drana was the best card in Rise, right?
I think so. I think Drana was the best card in
I
Rise.
think so too. Yeah.
Though I think Emrakul might have been better because it is a 15-15. But, when looking at what are the best cards in Limited, I kind of think, what are the cards that increase your wins by the most if you just got to add them to your deck? And I think in M12, adding Gideon Juro was, one of the best cards of all time you could add. Just
For
because
sure, that
there's
card
no
was
easy answers to it.
unbelievable in that format. It was
Right,
crazy.
if they had a big creature that was tapped, you play Gideon and kill it. If they had a big creature that was untapped, you +2 Gideon, chump block, and then kill it because they had to attack. If they had a bunch of small creatures and you had decent ones, you +2 Gideon, they just have to run all their creatures into yours and you get to kill them. So there's just no situation where Gideon wasn't great. And if they have no creatures, you can send Gideon in at them. It's a 6/6.
Yeah, yeah, he was
So,
unbelievable.
not the only card that costs white mana, or in fact 3 white, Wingmate Rock, which we just got to play with in cons. I think it's the next one, Wingmate Rock. White 3, white 3 for a 3/4 flyer that gains you a life every time you attack. For each creature that attacks, that's already pretty good. You
Yeah,
would all
that's
play
solid.
that card.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that if you attacked, it had raid and gave you another 3/4 means that Wingmate was one of the cards that I think took you from losing to winning the fastest. If
That card was unreal.
First of all, if you were already winning, this card just sealed the deal. There's no way your opponent's going to come back if you're already ahead and then you play Wingmate Rock. Second of all, if you were losing, you could sometimes just sneak or even just, suicide a creature in and then play Wingmate Rock, and then all of a sudden the board is stable because you had 2 3/4 flyers, one of which you don't mind blocking with at all, the other of which, if it gets to attack, is going to gain you 2 or 3 life. And I think that Wingmate Rock just, again, look at these cards that take you from, losing positions to winning positions. That's a really big part of it. We talk about that a lot. Plus,
Yeah.
just the power level of these cards is just absurd.
Yeah, it was only 5 mana. It also, you mentioned Raid, but Raid ended up being kind of trivially easy to get triggered. It wasn't, I remember thinking before the set, like, well, are we going to have Raid when we want Raid, for all the cards? And it ended up just being super easy.
Right. You could evaluate the raid cards as if they just had that ability, like
Yeah.
85% of the time or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Wingmate Rock on the list. Next up, Fate Reforged, the Citadel Siege. This card,
Oh, God.
2 white, and when you play it, you choose Khans or Dragons. And at first it's like, well, yeah, you choose Dragons, you get to tap down a creature every turn, that's pretty good. You choose Khans, you get 2+1 counters. Oh wait, this card's just not remotely beatable. If you could play this, it basically, what it asked of you is if you have a creature out and you can name Khans, you're going to win the game very easily because
Yes. That's
you
what
play
it did.
your creature gets bigger, they can't block it. Next turn you either play another creature to spread it out or just keep dumping on the same creature. And that's not even keeping in mind that if you're behind, you can actually name dragons and start tapping their best creature on every single turn. A card that was 2 white at the start of your opponent's turn combat to tap one of their creatures, that would be an incredibly good card. This
That would
card,
be
that's the
fantastic.
worst version of this card.
Yeah.
That's the bad side.
That was the bad end of the spectrum for it. And it was an enchantment, which made it
Yeah.
especially difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Is like, look at these cards so far. How do they interact with the removal? Well, Gideon's basically impossible to kill. Wingmate Rock takes multiple removal spells. Citadel Siege is impossible to kill. And that's just the reason that these cards... Citadel Siege asks nothing of you besides having a creature out and paying 4 mana, or not having a creature out and just getting to tap their creature every turn. And that's the fail case. So it was just one of the cards that if you could add a Citadel Siege to your deck, then your win percentage would just increase dramatically. Not as much as Packrat, though. Packrat's the next one.
Oh, this is the one, man.
Yeah,
This might be the best limited card ever.
I don't think it is. I think it's the second best.
Okay.
This is number 2 on my list.
Oh, there's one worse. Okay, interesting.
So pack rat, it's 1 in a black, and its power and toughness equal the number of pack rats you have. And you can pay 2 in a black and discard a card to make another pack rat. The key is, if your opponent didn't kill this, if you played this turn 2, especially on the play, once you made a second pack rat, even if your opponent killed the first one, the second one could make more pack rats.
Yep.
And it's basically impossible to race. Yes, it starts out as a 1-1, then it becomes then you have 2-2-2s, then 3-3-3s, then 4-4-4s, and then the game's pretty much over. I actually had pack rat at back-to-back sealed GPs, actually along with Mizzy Mortars in both those GPs.
I covered both of those.
I did top 8 both those GPs.
You sure did. One of them was Philly, right?
Yeah, one was Philly where we got stuck.
Where we got stuck there forever. Yeah.
And then the other was Indianapolis. And I have to tell you, pack rat, if you cast it, you just always won. I mean, there's Owen actually did get to syncopate my pack rat once, but luckily I had Mizzy Mortar still. And in general, if you cast pack rat, your opponent has 1 turn to deal with it, and then they can't kill it and they can't erase it. The only time you can beat pack rat is if they draw it like much later in the game, or if you just have some kind of, absurd draw that involves a lot of like very swingy cards, like Detention Sphere or a Wrath of some kind. And there are also very few answers to pack rat on the play. There's like 3 cards or something.
It was I think it was like Ultimate Price, Golgari Charm, something,
and Electrickery. Those are the
Electrickery,
3
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of cards in a format.
But what is going to beat pack rat on this list?
Yeah, it's the card's going to beat pack rat is Umezawa's Jite.
Okay.
And I have some reasons for this. I've thought about this topic probably way more than I need to. But Umezawa's Jite is 2 mana for equipment. You pay 2 to equip it. When the equipped creature deals damage, and no, this isn't deals damage to a player. This isn't deals damage when it attacks. This is just deals damage. So whether it attacks, whether it blocks, anytime it deals combat damage, rather, sorry. It has to be in combat. But anytime it deals combat damage, you get 2 counters on the Jite. You then remove a counter to give a creature -1/-1, or give the equipped creature +2/+2, or gain 2 life. This card's very strange. The first time I read the card, I thought, okay, this is probably pretty good.
That's even when you read it now, I still just think, it's fine.
Right.
It's unreal.
Part of it, I think, is our brains think, when this hits the player, because a lot of cards like this are worded that way. And part of it is just because the card's so weird. So I opened this card at the Champions of Kamigawa pre-releases from Champions. Put it in my deck because it looked like it was going to be good. The first time I drew it, I looked at the board, I looked at the GT, I looked back at the board, and I'm like, wow, I'm just going to win the game. And I was like, wait, is this the best card I've ever seen? It turns out it is. Because literally the first time I equipped it was on a 1/2 creature. I attacked with it. My opponent blocked the 2/2, so my creature died. I then killed my opponent's 2/2 by giving it -1/-1. Next turn I equipped it on a 2/2 and attacked. My opponent didn't have a 4/4, because I could make my creature into a 4/4 by giving it +2/+2, and then it could start picking off my opponent's creatures, getting 2 counters every single turn, and it gains a bunch of life, so your opponent can't even race it. And it's only 2 to equip, so you can put it on a creature attack, get 2 counters, then move it on to another creature, and they can't attack back.
And it's colorless.
It's a colorless artifact.
For
and
2.
This was in a format where there was exactly one main deckable artifact removal card, and maybe like 1 to 2 sideboard artifact cards.
Oh my God.
So your opponent could never kill it, and they could never win.
Well, you did it.
Yeah.
You found the card better than pack rat.
You could be losing badly in this card to get you out of it, because it immediately gains you 4 life or distributes 2 -1/-1 counters the turn you play and equip and attack with it. And then if you have enough creatures so you can re-equip on defense, there's no way they can attack into it again. So even if it's like your 2 creatures against an army, it's really hard to beat this card. If you're ahead, it's obviously just a joke. And even at parity, it's just not even close. So I think, and I'll stand by Umezawa's Jite being the best card in Limited of all time. So I'm curious if people have challengers, but so far I really haven't heard anything. There's a lot of other good cards, Rolling Thunder, Pestilence, Masticore, Phyrexian Processor. These cards are all fantastic, and maybe some of them go above some of the other cards on this list. I would be willing to buy that. I'm not really going to budge on number 1 though. That's the card, that's the number 1 bullet point on a list that I think the most confident of just about.
Yeah, so, I think you nailed it, dude. Because I never played against. I never played that format, right? I wasn't drafting. And I have played pack rat, and when you said this list, that's the first card that came to my mind. It was the card that everybody hated from the set, and everybody complained about, and your friend would walk up to you after a round, and how did it go? Pack rat. Okay, you don't need to say anything else. Everybody understood that the card was completely unbeatable, only cost 2 mana, was virtually impossible to deal with, etc. And then you said Jite, and that's a card I've played in Cube. and still underrated it there and realized that it just doesn't matter. That card is absolutely unreal in basically every scenario. Even if your opponent doesn't play creatures, it's still good. It just doesn't matter. Jitte is the best, and it is better than Pack Rat. You found it.